Cowboys 23, Giants 16. Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And we suffer the first loss of the 2022 season, the first loss under the Brian Daboll era. The Giants fall to 2-1. And on Monday Night Football, this was a frustrating loss, Justin, because this was very winnable. But I also do think it was a reminder after that 2-0 start that the roster is nowhere near there yet.
Yeah, for sure. Tough loss, but the way the game kind of went down, Bobby, I feel like it went down exactly the way it needed for the Cowboys to win, and then vice versa for the Giants to lose. The great news is that Daniel Jones played a great game, and I mean a really great game. We're going to talk about that after having a really first two rough weeks. Like, imagine what this game might have looked like if Jones didn't do what he did tonight. Another good news, I feel like coaching kind of kept us in the game, but the bad news is basically everything else. I feel like with Jones having a good game, we are really humbled by this wide receiver room since we didn't really know where we kind of stood with Jones having two bad games and missing some wide receivers down the field. We saw what happened when Leonard Williams missed one game, and the Cowboys front seven just kind of feasted all day. So I was unfortunately almost right on the preview pod when I said that the final score was going to be 23-17. It was 23-16. Set for the Cowboys. It just felt like this was going to happen against still a really talented Cowboys team.
Yeah, very talented defense, and they definitely showed up defensively. They were able to put 23 points up on the board offensively, which we'll talk about. But you mentioned coaching, and we'll get into the Daniel Jones stuff and the stuff that fell apart around him. Is that I did like the coaching in this game. With Wink Martindale, you got to go back and to pull a coach quote, watch the tape to see exactly what was happening and stuff, because obviously Cooper Rush went 12 of 13 in the second half. But offensively, I really liked what Mike Kafka did in this game more so than the first 2 weeks. Like, they knew that the front of Dallas was going to be an issue. They gave tight end help as much as they could, which led to some, block and release catches for Daniel Bellinger. It was a lot of play action, RPO, free release stuff. But at the end of the day, this is a game that's about Jimmys and Joes more so than X's and O's. And they just could not block. Like, they could not block at all. Daniel Jones was pressured 24 times today. That's the most pressures since they started tracking pressures in 2009. The most in a single game. We just witnessed a QB get pressured in a game. There was that single game.
Where is that? I'm just curious. Because I'm not. So ESPN. Okay, so it's not even like PFF that overestimates shit.
Yeah, like ESPN stats and info. Like, that's since they've started tracking pressures in 2009. That's the most times a QB's been pressured. And not only was it that, the wide receivers let him down. Almost even more so, because at least Daniel Jones, with all the pressure, was making it happen. Like we joke about the whole make it happen thing. He was making it happen. Like, he had 79 rushing yards. He was escaping. Even there's times where he was throwing the ball away, where it's like, that was an impressive play by Daniel Jones, just throwing the ball away.
Yeah.
He made tight window throws, was keeping his eyes downfield when he escaped, and it led to some tough passes. Like, he played awesome today. It doesn't mean he's the franchise QB, and it doesn't erase the first two games, but he played awesome today, and everyone around him besides Andrew Thomas and Saquon Barkley let him down.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, just imagine what this game is like if Daniel Jones doesn't do that. Like, I don't even know if I don't even know if they have 3 points on the board. Like, really, think about what this game looks like if Daniel Jones doesn't do what he did. I mean, defense didn't force any turnovers. Tight window throws, and the really screwed up thing is, Bobby, two of the most impressive plays, at least of Daniel Jones' season, and then I think especially that play tonight. Who was on the receiving end of it? The OPI.
Kenny Golladay.
So no, it wasn't Golladay on the receiving
Golladay
end.
caught
It was. Oh yeah, so it was Golladay. Yeah, Golladay was 0 for 3 tonight, 3 targets, 0 catches. So I guess that was technically his one catch, but it doesn't count. That was one of Daniel Jones's most impressive plays of his career, especially when you consider that it was improvised. It was escapability, moving out to his right and then evading that pass rusher that's coming. And, how often have, at least I've said, I don't think it's Daniel Jones's overall strength, his ability to improvise and escape and then throw on the run. I mean, he did that tonight, and that was one of the most impressive plays, definitely, of his season. So now it's 2 weeks in a row where Daniel Jones has awesome improvised plays, and they just don't count for anything in an offense that is really, really struggling to get anything of 10 plus yards and anything beyond the sticks.
Yeah, I mean, he just improvised almost every single play was improvised. Besides, the play, some of the play action boot or the RPO stuff. Basically almost every single play was improvised by Daniel Jones because there was nothing open, and then there was a ton of pressure in his face. The pressure throwing that ball to Richie James, which is oh my gosh, I can't believe that throw. And like you said, the throw to Kenny Galladay, there was other tough throws, ones that ended up being dropped. The pressure was huge, man, and it just sucks. It sucks I hate this feeling more than any feeling in the world, especially now that we're in year 4. Daniel Jones, his 5th-year option declined and stuff. It's so frustrating, especially it seems to happen on primetime more than not. Whereas this Daniel Jones gutsy performance, and it just gets wasted in a loss. And this was a winnable game for the Giants. So it sucks that this performance was wasted in a loss. I'm so tired of having those conversations.
And the other sad thing is, it's not going to get better. What improvements are coming to the Giants wide receiver room? I mean, Sterling Shepard, which, I guess we can talk about this now too. Sterling Shepard, yeah, he had the drop pass. That really sucks. But just more importantly, I think his career may be done. His Giants career is definitely done. We'll wait and see what this diagnosis is on the left knee. But, the fact that the guy was jogging and barely even running.
He got hit by a sniper.
It's crazy. So, that's just gut-wrenching because Shep is, obviously a guy that struggled to stay on the field, but, a guy that we've rooted for years, and, he's the last Giant of, the Jerry Reese era and the last time that we actually were winning, and he's been, Mr. Reliable in terms of Daniel Jones throwing it to him on third downs and a chain mover. We love Sterling Shepard, so it just sucks to see, especially, he worked really hard to get back from that Achilles injury, but when is it going to get better for Daniel Jones throwing to these wide receivers? It's not. It's not. Unless they go out and they sign somebody, which they're not going to do, at least, they're not going to go out and get T.Y. Hilton. They're not doing it.
Cole Beasley could actually come down the pipe. But, yeah, it's not. But here's where it can get better is you're not facing the Dallas front, which is menacing.
Yeah, which they do have a top 5 defense. And we talked about on the preview pod how they've done a great job of adjusting and doing some things different, not just relying on turnovers this year. That was a huge question for Dallas. Are they going to be a defense that just feasts off of turnovers, can they also get stops outside of that? And, Dallas missed a couple turnover opportunities today, and they still got the stops.
Do you want to talk bad wide receiver play or bad O-line play?
I think bad wide receiver play. I flat out, I think that's what the game comes down to, maybe a 50-50 split, but at least in my brain, in my opinion, just at the game, seeing that all 22 wide perspective, even when Daniel Jones improvises and gets out of the pocket, nobody is getting open. So,
yeah, you know how it goes. And that's the nice thing about playing on primetime is they show you great replays of what's happening down the field, and it was every time it's okay, is there going to be somebody that Daniel Jones missed? Nope. Never was somebody that he missed. Sterling Shepard had the one big drop at the end of the game that looked like a fumble. He had a drop on third down. Jones threw the ball a little high, but that still was literally right in his hands on a third down. He had 5 catches for 49 yards.
On 10 targets, too. It's very rare for Shep to have such a low catch rate. It's a 50% catch rate. So,
yeah, that's not what we usually see out of Sterling Shepard, and 2 drops is a big part of that. Kenny Galladay, who we said something's got to give with him. He has 2 drops. One was just egregious. The other one, you may not call it a drop, but it was that 4th and 4. They run the slant. Cornerback, drives on it to the insides, and I thought Jones had to put that kind of behind Kenny Galladay, or else it either gets broken up or intercepted, or at least the cornerback is getting hands on it. And it's a tough catch to make, no doubt. But Kenny Galladay, we need you to make those tough catches. And he got his hands on it. It came in hot, but it's a fourth down. We need guys to show up in those moments. He doesn't get that. He can't talk anymore. I'm holding out judgment for Kenny Galladay until the regular season starts. Well, week 1 he looked horrible. Had no get off. Week 2 they only play him 2 snaps. We talk about how something has to give. They either have to play him or they have to find a way to move on with this guy. They might have found what can Kenny Galladay say this week? What can he say if week 4 they bench him and don't play him? What can he say in the press conferences after that? Because he has not performed at all. He has been just flat out bad. He's been a flat out bad wide receiver, and drops are worse in the public view than not getting open. Because Kenny Galladay can say, well, I've never been a guy that's gotten open that's lived off of separation. But what you can't have is Mr. Contested Catch guy dropping basically everything that's thrown his way.
I don't even know what Kenny Galladay offers that's good at this point. What is Kenny Galladay good at?
Unless they start throwing back shoulders, which we have not seen, I don't know, because he can't get off the line of scrimmage and stack cornerbacks anymore. He can't. He looks worse than last year. He looked better last year. Last year was a limited offense as far as scheme wise. This year he just doesn't fit, and they're not going to throw back shoulder. They're just playing off of him, and he's not able to get any separation or even get a step to open up a window for him. So you can't throw the ball deep to him because they just play off of him, and he's never going to get past that. David Sills sucks, falls, leading to an interception. They got the ball back, and it was hey, this is a long shot. Completes a pass to Daniel Jones, completes a 15-yard pass to Richie James. David Sills runs a dig, falls, ends up being an interception to Trayvon Diggs. He had 2 catches for 20 yards in this game. Kadarius Toney, always he's injury prone. Last year was not an outlier. He had 6 different injuries last year. Gets injured in training camp. Then gets put a questionable on the injury report for week 2. Plays in the game. Looks pretty good when he's out there. Daniel Jones missed him a couple times. And then he's down. Then he's missing practice and out for this game. We need a wide receiver. The wide receiver room is bad. And you just can't trust, similar to Sterling Shepard, just the difference is with Shepard seems to be more serious injuries where Tony is these little ones. You just can't trust, you can't really plan on Kadarius Toney because he's always injured. He is an injury-prone player. It sucks because it's so exciting when he is out there, and it's hard to hate a guy for being injured, but he's just injury-prone and he can't be relied upon.
I said it last week, and I don't think I'm wrong. The Giants legitimately have one of the worst wide receiver groups in the NFL. And that's why I want to start off with talking about the wide receivers first, because I at least think the O-line, I think, like you said, it's a little bit of an exception when you're facing that Dallas front 7. This is not going to get better for these Giants wide receivers. It's not. And even when Wan'Dale comes back, how much does that change things?
That's another thing. Wan'Dale.
He's still going to split reps with Richie James.
Yeah, Richie James has been your only reliable one.
And they're not embracing. By the way, they're not embracing. They should embrace more Richie James being the focal point of the passing offense. And it's not, at this point, it's not a joke. During the summer when I was saying summer of Richie James season, blah, 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 we didn't even do a PPP of him. How rude. During the summer, it was a joke. Now it's not a joke. It's he's the only one that really, when Daniel Jones kind of improvises, he kind of finds and sits in zones, sits in spots and gets open. He's the only one that gets open. It's not a joke anymore. They have to center the passing offense around him. Also, and that's a bad spot to be in.
Yeah. At what point do we stop talking about David Sills and Kenny Galladay and just say, hey, we have a wide receiver on the outside who actually has speed when none of our other guys do in Darius Slayton? They have no deep threats.
Right.
They don't have a deep threat. There is no respect for the Giants to get beat deep.
Honestly, we thought it was bad with Garrett, and this is not a referendum on Kafka or Dable. It's not, because
I like the job that Kafka.
I 100% agree with you. Where I was cool. I'm cool about this game. I'm really, really cool. because, man, is this wide receiver room going to be drastically different next year. I think the only two that are on the team is Wandale, definite, and then like maybe Richie James, because I think that they like him and maybe they'll keep him around. But I mean, there's going to be every single other wide receiver. I think is going to be different. I really don't think Tony's on the team. Different conversation for later down the road. There's still a long season left, right? But yeah, man, this wide receiver room is still going to be so different. I feel like the offense is going to be different. The future of Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley is up in the air. So all those things are up in the air. But again, we headed into this season saying that we want to see coaching. We want to see good coaching. We want to see good schematics. And we saw it on Wink Martindale the first 2 weeks, and then we started to see it, especially on this side of the ball, on offense. And it was crazy impressive because of how bad the offensive line was. Like, just their ability to move the ball. They were moving the ball better in the first half, even though they only had 3 points. They were moving the ball better in the first half of this game. They should have had 6 because Graham could no block field goal. But they were moving the ball better in the first half of this game than they were at any point of the game of either of their first 2 games of the season. So I really loved what Kafka and Dable did. I honestly forget what my overall point was. But
well, it's just at the end of the day, you can only scheme up stuff so much. Like,
correct.
You have to have.
Oh
guys
no, we were
perform.
talking about deep
to
plays.
get back to
Slayton. But I'm gonna finish this up and then I'm gonna throw it back to you. You're talking about Slayton, who takes the top off. There's only so much that you can do when, again, you can't produce a play of 10 plus yards unless your name is Saquon Barkley or unless Daniel Jones is running the ball, and then taking on a QB non-designed run. They can't produce a play of like 10 or 15 yards or more. And when you run so many plays in a given drive, they're eventually going to stall. And that's like exactly what happened in that first half. They ran so many plays that by the time they got to the 30-yard line, shit would just stall. Somebody holds, you take a sack, and credit to Daniel Jones too, that whenever he took a sack, I felt like it was like 4 yards or less. So that's also credit to him, even though he got sacked 5 times, that none of them were really like drive derailing. So they got to play Slayton more, man. They really do.
Yeah, and like we said with the coaching stuff, like eventually you got to run some drop back passing, but I think Kafka did as good of a job as he could scheming around the issues. So let's talk about the offensive line. It starts with Evan Neal. Gave up 3 sacks. It sucks to see the sacks and stuff, but also I think Evan Neal could benefit from eating a bear burger.
Wow, I think that's totally correct.
It would make him stronger. And listen, is Bear Burger a burger joint? Yeah. But they're not the type to be bogged down by labels. Their menu is filled with options for everyone, regardless of your preferences. So whether you're 100% vegan or you're craving one of their elk burgers, they won't judge you. At Bear Burger, there's only one restriction you'll be limited to. Food that's made to taste great. Something for everyone. Yes, even you. They take burgers very seriously at Bear Burger. Their menu is filled with options for all. Build your own creation and let us know. Let us know John Boy sent you, and then tweet it at Bear Burger for a chance to win Bear Burger gift card. I think the old Dave Gettleman account got a gift card.
He
from
did.
That.
He won.
So do that. So continue to do that. 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. They got a lunch special, a choice of select sandwich served with fries for $14.95. That's a good deal. They've got the elk burger, bison burger, ostrich burger. Click the link in the description to find yourself at the best happy hour, tastiest burgers joint, and overall great spot. Order.bearburger.com. You'll be glad you did.
Oh.
So,
Evan Neal
gave up 3 sacks. But to me, if you've been watching the O-line reports, it's nothing new. It's the same issues. He just faced a better front in Dallas, and they were able to take advantage of his play. And this is the same stuff we saw in training camp. This is the same stuff we saw in the preseason, and the same stuff we saw in week 1 and week 2. It's the same exact stuff. Just the Cowboys made the
exploited it.
Yeah, exploited it the most. Is that he's got to keep his feet moving through contact. There's the stuff he's got to work with his hands and stuff. But he gets to the block and gets connected to the block, and his feet just stop. He's got to keep his feet moving through those blocks, man. He's really struggling with that. And obviously it's his 3rd game, so don't overreact. Let him grow. Well, we just had the same, a very similar experience with Andrew Thomas, even though I do think Andrew Thomas was a better prospect than Evan Neal. But let him grow through this. But it does suck to watch like Evan Neal just give up 3 sacks in a game, and now 4 sacks in three games. Where I think Thomas gave up 6 his rookie year. So he's just got to keep his feet moving through the contact of the block, because they're just stopping. They're just stopping, and I don't know why. Like I've seen him, I've seen his move his feet through blocks, but it's just he's got to realize, man, in the NFL, you can have your hands on guys, and you just got to keep your feet moving. And it's starting a little with his punch, but I think the focus for them has just got to be all on the footwork. Like, don't worry about your punch and stuff like that. Worry about it, but don't focus on it. Just footwork. Almost, you could even like tie his hands behind his back and just be like, let's do pass sets. Let's do pass sets where you gotta beat this guy with your feet. So it is frustrating to watch, but it's also, he's a rookie who's gonna have rookie struggles, and we'll talk about Kayvon, who's gonna have rookie struggles too later. But never fun. But also plenty of pressure up the middle as well. Again, you don't have the most pressures since they started counting pressures because of Evan Neal. Like, I don't even know where to pinpoint it on the inside. Whether Feliciano, Glowinski, Bredesen, like it was just nonstop all game long.
Yeah, well, there were a couple highlight plays where Micah Parsons is just throwing Glowinski to the ground and running through him like he's nothing.
That I will say, that one wasn't Glowinski's fault as much as it was, like, I think Tanner Hudson was on that, and he kind of just threw Micah Parsons into Glowinski when Glowinski wasn't looking. But
I think Matt Breida was run over at one point too. The Cowboys
Thomas got beat inside on that, but yeah, Breida got run over.
Cowboys had a total of 12 QB hits, which is pretty insane. 7 different players had at least 1 QB hit. 4 players had at least 2 QB hits. DeMarcus Lawrence had 3. Donovan Wilson as a safety had 2 QB hits. Dorrance Armstrong had 2 QB hits, and then Micah Parsons had 2 QB hits as well. DeMarcus Lawrence had 3 sacks. So DeMarcus Lawrence was the main guy who did most of the damage, 3 out of the 5 sacks. And I was hanging out with my buddy Boker, who's biggest Cowboy fan I know, and that was like DeMarcus Lawrence's best game since like 2017. So Cowboys,
that's the thing, is it's not like this is the DeMarcus Lawrence that we knew in those years. Like, he hasn't been a great pass rusher as of late. But he's a vet, and he knew how to take advantage of Evan Neal's weaknesses, and he really did that.
And the weird thing is that they had Parsons a decent amount. Maybe not as much as I'm thinking, but Parsons was off the field for a decent part of tonight, and then he was lined up as an interior linebacker too for a good amount of snaps too. So it wasn't just Micah Parsons lining up on the edge, and then maybe the Giants are doubling him, chipping a tight end to that side. So the Giants had a decent amount of opportunities where Micah Parsons was not lined up on the edge, but Cowboys were still able to kind of wreak havoc.
And they did use the tight ends a lot to block.
They did,
and then they used them in block and releases. And Daniel Bellinger had 4 catches for 40 yards, partly because of that. Like, they'd use. It's not like they didn't try. It's not like they just went Cincinnati Bengals Joe Burrow style. Like, we're going empty. Like, they tried. They kept the running backs in. They kept the tight ends in to help, and it was just they could not get like protected up, and it was pretty bad to watch. Before we move to the defense, I do want to say Saquon Barkley continues to look really good. Obviously, he had that 36-yard rushing touchdown, 14 carries for 81 yards, 5.8 yards per carry, 4 catches for 45 yards, and he had a 20-yard screen called back.
Yep.
Where Feliciano was 3 yards upfield, which sucks. I don't really like when O-linemen get called for illegal man upfield when they're 3 yards upfield. Like, usually that's somewhere in the buffer zone. But again, another game where he has 126 yards from scrimmage. Really the only guy who can just make stuff happen. Like, anytime the play was blocked halfway decent, Saquon made something really good out of it, whether the 10-yard run, 8-yard run, and then obviously the 36-yard one was the best. And then when when it was blocked really bad, Saquon did a good job of getting 2 or 3 yards, which is what we've wanted out of Saquon. He's looked like a different back, and I think we're getting the most out of him on a down in, down out basis.
Yeah, just to have that repeat of a Tennessee performance like so often in a season, that's the problem with kind of just relying on a running back to kind of carry your team, because that's just not going to happen. But good on Saquon Barkley, and that kind of 30-yard touchdown was an insane run. I think it's going to look a lot more impressive when I actually watch a replay of it on TV with all the different angles, and when I watch it on all 22 versus just seeing it in person and just celebrating it in the moment. I kind of want to see him involved in the receiving game more outside of just screens. I know it was a really fun route that he ran the first drive of the game, and it was called for defensive holding. Should he have caught that ball, by the way?
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been like a 15, 20-plus yard play. This team isn't good enough to leave 15-plus yard plays on the table. So whether it's Saquon kind of dropping that ball, which I'm not really going to fault him on that, it was an automatic first down, or John Feliciano being 3 yards down the field and then that screenplay being called back, they're not good enough to not capitalize on that, and especially with these OPIs 2 weeks in a row too. So
well, that was the most frustrating thing about the offense is like Daniel Jones makes something happen, 1, 2, 3 plays, and then it's like nuked.
Yep.
Drop,
can't have it.
Sack, tackle for a loss. Why don't you read an ad and then we'll talk about the defense?
Yeah, new sponsor, True Classic. Support for today's episode comes from True Classic. They have the absolute best, and I mean absolute best, fitting t-shirts a man can buy. Not to mention, they're super soft. 2 things I like, and quite a combo. Best fitting tee, because there are sometimes that our shirts are really tough, and then also super soft. I like that combo. When you're jacked, like I am, lost all that weight, I'm super jacked now, finding the right t-shirt can be incredibly frustrating. Most t-shirts are too tight in all the wrong places, or they're way too big and boxy. So if you're spending countless hours at the gym, why not spend 5 minutes to find out that perfect fit? True Classic has already helped over 2 million men get their fit on at an affordable price. Our listeners, they can get access to the absolute best deal that True Classic offers. For a limited time only, get 25% off with the code GIANTS at trueclassic.com. Girls have push-up bras. That's what they have. Well, guys, they got these tees. We want to show off our best assets, but we've never been given the perfect fit. Guys, you're wearing the wrong clothes. You need True Classics, snug around the arms and chest with a little extra room in the bottom to streamline your style. One of my favorite things, for any of the big boys out there, they have long body options for the tall guys and XXX sizing. So, it's about time to get your fit together. Upgrade your wardrobe with True Classic. Get 25% off at trueclassic.com with code GIANTS. Free shipping included on purchases over $100. That's 25% off at trueclassic.com with code GIANTS. Strengthen your core wardrobe with True Classic today.
You'll be glad you did. All right, the defense gave up 17 points in the second half after only getting out 6 in the first half. Cooper Rush went 12 of 13 in the second half, which I was kind of blown away at that. This to me was just like, oh yeah, we don't have very good players on defense. We had no pass rush, like none, 0 sacks. Essentially 2 games with 0 sacks. I hate that. I kind of hate that the Timon Fox sack from week 1, because it's like he was tackled like at the line of scrimmage rolling out.
Is that the only sack
from week 1? Yeah.
Well, oh yeah, then Julian Love had a sack. So let's go through the sacks.
No, last week there was 2, O'Shane Zimenez and Julian Love, but there's 2 games now they went where they didn't have a sack.
Yeah, that's
so
not
they had
great.
no pass rush and they could not stop the run. And I guess we could start with the run game. You miss Leonard Williams big time. Like, you really miss Leonard Williams big time, and it makes you appreciate what Leonard Williams does in the run game and not get focused on, well, how many sacks did he have this week? How many QB hits did he have this week? Even though Leonard Williams needs to produce those. They had 178 rushing yards on 28 carries, 6.3 yards per carry. So not only is it like a big rushing yard number, which it absolutely is, but it's like they were able to hand the ball off 28 times and feel confident about it every single time. Like every single time they handed the ball off, it was not a negative play. Like they did not have negative plays. The only one was when Xavier McKinney came down and played linebacker. That was really the only negative play they had rushing the ball, because they were able to take advantage of this defense without Leonard Williams. And honestly, in the other years, the past 3 years, you lose Leonard Williams, it's still a big loss. But you have Austin Johnson, B.J. Hill for one of those years. Dalvin Tomlinson obviously was there before.
I have never heard of the defensive lineman that they called up from the practice squad that played
Henry
the majority
Mondeau.
of the snaps. I have never heard of him.
I was surprised how many snaps he played. Henry Mondeau, Nick Williams, Justin Ellis is not very good. Justin Ellis is only good when you have him at nose tackle and Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence on the field. Like they just don't have any depth at that D-line spot. Like it went from one of the biggest strengths depth-wise over the last few years to one of the biggest weaknesses depth-wise. You don't have that. And what's more frustrating is how bad the linebacker play is behind it. First, Tay Crowder can't scrape over blocks. He can't take on blocks. He didn't wrap up on that Ezekiel Elliott goal line run. But Austin Calitro, man, it's I can't stand him. And he got benched, by the way, in this game. And he rightfully so. I've never seen such a bad gap responsibility on him on that long. Remember the long Tony Pollard run?
Yeah,
he's going to play his gap. Justin Ellis is playing his gap, underneath it, and he decides, well before Tony Pollard gets to the level where Austin Calitro is, that he undercuts it. With a good 4 yards between Tony Pollard and that block. He undercuts the block and leaves the gap wide open, and then Tony Pollard breaks it off for 40 yards or whatever it ended up being. I had never been why don't you fill your gap? And again, we're talking about Austin Calitro. It's one thing if a guy who's out there is a playmaker, it's like, hey, I'm going to try and undercut this and make a play on it. You're Austin Calitro, my man. You weren't even on a roster when training camp started. Play your fucking gap. God, that frustrates me so much. And I know it frustrated Wink Martindale. They benched him after that. They flat out benched him after that. Micah McFadden played after that. Had a couple good plays, but nothing special. Play your gap, dude. That's the type of stuff that frustrates me more than anything. I'm not going to be, when Henry Mondeau gets beat down the field on a double team, I can't be too mad at that. But when a guy who is not a playmaker doesn't play his gap, come on, man. And you're 28 years old, bounce around the league, play your freaking gap. That's the difference of points right there. It's difference of points because he got selfish. And it wasn't even a good risk. I didn't see the reward on it. You're not fast. You're not able to slip those blocks. That was so frustrating seeing Austin Calitro just play selfish football for no reason.
Yeah, one of the reasons why, really the only reason why I was a little hesitant on the Giants defense heading into this game, and this was going to still be a big test for the Giants defense, is it sustainable to stop teams on third down and 4 to go and shorter, where 66% of the time through the first 2 weeks of the season, the Giants were stopping teams on 3rd and 4 and shorter. They were stopping them 66% of the time, including 0 for 3 on 3rd and 1s. Well, tonight, Dallas was 5 for 8 on third downs between 1 and 4 yards, and then technically 6 for 8 if you include them going for it on 4th down, and they were 1 for 1 on 4th down. That 3rd down, before the 4th down that they went for it and they got it, it was a 3rd and 4 and shorter. So that was the main test tonight for this Giants defense is, can you force Cooper Rush into 3rd and longs where the defense, where the opposing offense gets super predictable and you know what's coming, and they couldn't do it. I think Leonard Williams not being on the field is obviously a huge part of it, and hopefully he kind of comes back sooner rather than later. But that's the one thing that I looked at through the first 2 weeks of the season, saying, can this be sustainable when you for forcing teams into 3rd and short? Can Wink Martindale continue to get off the field? And at least for tonight, Dallas was basically 6 for 8 on 3rd and downs and 4 and shorter.
It's hard to say if Wink Martindale did anything where it's that was a bad play call on that. Brian Dable mentioned it in the press conference, and it looked like this too, is that in the passing game, they took advantage of some switch coverages where there was either bad communication or just like, hey, they took advantage of it. That's, yeah, you get it. You saw some exotic looks by Wink Martindale, but with Cooper Rush, he gets the ball out very quickly. Like, I think coming into this game, he had the second quickest time to throw in the NFL. So that stuff doesn't work as well. So again, I'm not. I think this is more Jimmys and Joes and X's and O's with Wink Martindale on the defense, and we'll talk about the pass rush in a second. But I guess we could talk about the pass rush now. Cooper Rush, anytime he dropped back, he had all day to throw. Like, we could not get pressure at all, and it's kind of frustrating when you get Kayvon and Azeez back, and you don't, like, the pass rush doesn't get any better.
Yeah, we were hoping that maybe they would take advantage of, some offensive line play that hasn't been the same for the Dallas Cowboys over the last couple of years. I know, Azeez got close once or twice. I think maybe Kayvon got close once. But, I mean, the Giants had 2 QB hits, and one was O'Shane Ximines, one was Dexter Lawrence. And reminder, the Dallas Cowboys had 12 QB hits, and about, 7 different players had a QB hit. So, frustrating. I mean, this is, like you said, I mean, it comes down to talent, this game, where somebody's got to win. Wink Martindale can't just manufacture everything. Somebody's got to win. And I think if there was a game to start relying on guys winning up front, it was this game. So,
and again, when we're talking about rookies, it's don't
Azeez isn't a rookie. I mean, you're coming back from a knee injury.
I'm about to talk about Kayvon Thibodeau.
Let's talk about Kayvon Thibodeau.
Like, he was a zero. And the frustrating part about it is that, like, you were facing Tyler Smith on a lot of those plays. And Tyler Smith is a rookie. So, like, I wanted to see him win some of those. And Azeez had some wins, but he just didn't have the impact that he needs to have. And those guys were on a snap count and coming off injury, so I'm not going to go too heavy on them unless we get a bigger sample size. But Cooper Rush had all day. And, again, you saw, like, Cooper Rush had no velocity on the football. Like, he had no velocity on the football, but he was able to get some chunk plays because he had all day to process stuff. And the Giants' back end isn't great. Like, they're not going to be able to hold up forever. You had Fabian Moreau and Cordell Flott and Darnay Holmes playing a ton. And CeeDee Lamb got the best of Adoree Jackson on a few plays. Like, CeeDee Lamb had 8 catches for 87 yards and a touchdown. And that touchdown, like, Adoree Jackson wasn't, like, an issue, but he came, he was human in this game where, the last 10 games before this, he was like, it was otherworldly what this guy was doing in coverage. So, you face a guy like CeeDee Lamb, Adoree Jackson's not going to be able to keep everyone to 1 catch and 10 yards. You just can't rely on a guy to do that. And so they took advantage of some switch coverages, and you have no pass rush, and it makes it easy for a backup QB to look good.
Yeah. Tough. I mean, again, you look up and down the defense, and was Tay Crowder a long-term answer? No. I mean, Austin Calitro? No. I mean, there's going to be so much that's going to be different, like, up and down the board for this team. I mean, even just looking into next year, So I don't want to get into, like, that kind of talk, but I just look up and down the roster, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm evaluating how you play. Tough.
Yeah, it's a good reality check for, like, okay, this roster is not there yet. Like, 2-0 was fun. And again, when you talk about losses, it always sucks, but I'm not disappointed with the first. Like, I'm very excited how these first 3 games went. If you asked me before the season, these first 3 games, like you said, this is how the first 3 games are going to go. I take it every time.
Yeah, and not to just totally jump the gun on this game recap pod, but as I'm walking out of the stadium, the game that we're talking about is Chicago. It's like, all right, this game sucked. We were in it to the end. Dallas Cowboys have a really talented defense. The way that the Giants lost this game was the way that I think if you talk to Giants fans before the game, this is how we were going to tell you that we were going to lose. It was going to be, we were going to allow them to run all over us, and the Giants offense just isn't going to do much because Daniel Jones is getting pressured and the wide receivers can't get open. That is exactly how Giants fans will tell you that they would lose this game, and that's exactly how we did lose this game. So now, like, my brain goes to a bad Chicago team. And, how can you recover from it? When something goes wrong, this is the first thing that's kind of gone wrong in the Brian Dable, Joe Shane era, at least on the football field, right? How can you kind of recover from it and rebound from it when Chicago has a really, 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 really bad team? So that's like where my brain immediately, as I'm walking out of the stadium, I'm going from, I cannot wait to get back in the stadium next Sunday. We are still 2-1. How can we get 3-1?
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is we talk about the pass rush. Kayvon Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari need to be better than what they were on Monday night.
Yeah.
They flat out have to be better. You can't have that. You can't stack performances like that. Like Kayvon Thibodeau, I was just waiting. Like, I want to see a good pass rush rep from Kayvon Thibodeau, and it just never came. Like, with Azeez, you saw him here and there. With Kayvon Thibodeau, it never came. So, now Chicago it has this very weird offensive line where they're amazing run blocking and god-awful pass blocking. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic goes. But we'll see. But we have a preview pod on Friday to get it on that. Is there anything else you want to hit on the defense before we talk about Lawrence Taylor hanging out at the tailgate?
Yeah. No. Aaron Robinson's probably going to be back. Hopefully. Leonard Williams maybe will be back, even though he suffered like the same injury as Kayvon. Leonard Williams is such a beast. Like the fact that there was like a question on like, oh, will Leonard Williams play? Like he was on the injury report, but there was like still like a question like later in the week, even though like I think we all knew that he wasn't. I hope he plays. I mean that he's such a beast, man. If he comes back, I mean, remember that he suffered a season-ending injury last year, and then he kind of came back from that, didn't miss a game. Inside joke. Want me to talk about the Candlewick Diner?
Yeah, talk about Candlewick Diner and all the food they provided for us.
Yeah, I mean the tailgate today, Bobby, was like more chaotic, at least for me personally, than like FanFest. Like at least FanFest.
Well, I got like 20 DMs or mentions like, where's the tailgate at? Where's the tailgate at? Where's the tailgate at? And I replied to every single one.
It was so cool. It was so fun. Like there were even some of these I think they were like college kids or whatever. They were like they interviewed me and they asked me about MetLife, and I talked about like the character of MetLife, and then I talked about like John Mara. And like, oh, why did you say this about John? I said like John Mara is the Giants and the Giants are John Mara. And he's like, why did you say that? Well, I'm like, well, you go back to the history and Wellington Mara and how the Maras used to like run everything from top to bottom. So, I mean, there were a ton of people that came up. Dan Schneider hung out. I kind of exposed him online because he wasn't wearing white. Dan Schneider's the reason why we lost today. He was like the only person at our tailgate that didn't have white on. Tough look. There were a lot of people that didn't have white on, but he was the only one at our tailgate. But it was super awesome. Like Candlewick Diner provided so much food, an amazing spread, sausage and peppers, penne vodka, wings went right away. Mac and cheese was to die for. That went. So Candlewick Diner, they're also going to be catering the Washington game. That will be the game that Bobby will be up for in the month of December. So come out to that. But even if Candlewick Diner isn't catering every tailgate, I still want you to go and check them out. In East Rutherford, New Jersey, they're celebrating their 53rd year in East Rutherford this October. Located just a mile up the road from MetLife Stadium, it's the perfect spot for a pregame breakfast or a post-game dinner, and you might want to have a drink too. They have a full-service bar. Might want to grab a drink, especially if the Giants are going to start losing some games. They're not going to do that anymore. And it's a spot that's frequently visited by Giants players, particularly even after games. So I want you to check out the Candlewick Diner in East Rutherford, New Jersey for all your diner favorites. Thank you to Candlewick Diner for being so awesome for us. Catering our tailgates, they did FanFest too. They're going to do the Washington game. So thank you to Manny and the Candlewick Diner.
How did Lawrence Taylor end up at our tailgate?
So, I mean, I guess it looked like that he was at our tailgate, which is cool. But he was not at our tailgate. He was at a private event, and I mean, I'll tell you, Lawrence Taylor had a drink or two, and by drink or two,
no, not Lawrence Taylor.
By a drink or two, maybe like 20. He was at this private event, probably getting paid a shit ton of money to be there. Was not on the field for when they were doing like the Giants like legendary like legends like introductions like in the beginning of the game, was not there. He was up in like a suite, and then they showed him in the middle of the game, which is rare. I don't think the Giants
they showed him on the field before in pregame on TV.
So he was on the field pregame.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't think he was there because I didn't see him, but they showed him on the big screen during the game too. So no, but I ran into LT. He was at this private event, and there was a little bit of a barricade, and there were a few other fans that were up. He was signing stuff, taking pictures. I tried to get him to say, "Go out there like a bunch of crazed dogs." That's like my favorite. That's like my favorite quote from him, and they play it like every game in like the hype video for the Giants. Let's go out there like a bunch of crazed dogs and have some fun. So that's what LT says. I tried to get him to say that. I think he was a little too faded to really know anything that was going on that outside of what was coming out of his own mouth. Cool guy, LT, like greatest of all time, greatest football player to ever put on pads. Took a picture with him. It was cool.
You posted it like 5 times.
Yeah, my service was really bad. It was one of those moments where the service just started to get really bad at MetLife in the parking lot. And it's one of those posts where it's like, motherfucker, this needs to post right now. Like, it can't wait until right before the game, right when I get in Wi-Fi. This fucking needs to post right now. And lo and behold, I posted it like 5 times. I liked your tweet.
Yeah, I knew exactly what it... Well, at first I saw like your tweet and had like 500 likes in like 10 minutes. And then I saw it again and I was like, why does it only have 75 likes? And then I saw it again and it had 25. And then I went to your page and I'm like, oh, that's what happened.
Just bad service.
So it seems like the tailgate was a good time. Like I had a little FOMO seeing the video. Seemed like
there was an insane amount of people.
Had a good time.
There was an insane amount of people. So thank you to everybody that came out. We're doing it every game. I mean, like I said, we're not going to have like food at every game. If that kind of turns you off, but I mean, bring your own food. And I mean, there's a shit ton of people. You have Snacks' original like L16 crew that hangs out. And I consider those people family. We all got our Talking Giants tailgate crew shirts. So we tried doing a blackout on a whiteout. It didn't work. But tailgates are the most fun part of Giants games. I mean, even when they win, they're just the flat out the most fun part, the funnest parts of Giants games. We all get excited together. We all celebrate together. And you never know. LT may just be like a couple hundred feet away, and then you can like see him. You never know.
How was my cousin?
Your cousin was fantastic. Did not know that you had family members that were Cowboy fans. Your cousin was very, very nice. She was very, very nice.
Yeah, I didn't know she was a Cowboys fan either because she messaged me like, "Are you at the game?" I was like, "No." I was like, but go check out we have food and stuff. Go check it out. And then she sent me a picture with you, and I'm like, why are you wearing a Cowboys? I think her boyfriend or somebody is a Cowboys fan.
Yeah. She I think she was with her boyfriend and then the boyfriend's father and stuff like that. So they were really nice. We were talking about. I was giving them some stats that they can share with like Giants fans next to them during the game and be like, did you know that the Giants have given up 2 10-plus yard runs this year, and Leonard Williams was not on the field for either of them? So it's like you can tell, like the Giants fans that are nagging you next to you, that the fact that the Cowboys are probably going to run the ball really well, and they did. So no, they were really nice, and they were actually the ones that told me that LT was there. Like I saw them, talked with them, took a picture, and then they left, and then they came back to tell me that LT's just a couple hundred feet away. So then I went, and I'm like, Julian, let's fucking go. Let's go see LT. So
word it up. Sounded like a good time.
Word it up.
All right, so we'll be back on Wednesday for a mailbag pod.
That's a lie.
Or Thursday for a mailbag pod. Sorry,
Thursday.
Forgot we're dealing with Monday Night Football. By the way, I'm about to get hit with this hurricane.
Yeah, Julian may not. In turn, Julian's actually Julian. Come here. Come here. You have to show us the fit. Like this is fantastic. Julian took the whiteout very, very seriously. So Julian's flying back down to Tampa or Orlando. Orlando.
I'm going to Orlando, but my family's from Tampa. And yeah, we're screwed in Florida for sure.
Tampa's gonna get lit up. The West Coast is gonna get lit
Bobby
up.
At all, but yeah, I'm dripped out.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, just the thrift, and then see if you can get like a leg up here.
Listen, Dayball said bring white. Like I brought the white.
He brought the white.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
No doubt.
I wish I could hear him.
I'm about to get lit up by this hurricane, though.
But you're not afraid, though.
No. Well, here's the only thing that sucks is that it'll mess with my workflow.
Mm.
Like, I like the hurricanes to come in preseason, not in the in season.
Where Bobby's at in Florida, is going to be fine. It's going to be gnarly weather, but not too much different from Florida standards.
Well, if I lose power, I'm going to have to do the podcast on my phone in my car.
That's true.
Oh, great.
But me and Danny are going to do a live weather video.
Oh,
like,
really?
I'm going to hook them up on the StreamYard, and I can do StreamYard on my phone too, and go do live weather reports.
So you're going to be like in the field.
Yeah. I'm going to be a field reporter.
A field reporter.
So
I'm actually really excited for that.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. So we'll be back on Thursday for a mailbag pod. We'll have O-line report, film review, all that good stuff out.
I'll do the O-line report this week. Imagine that.
God, the O-line report's gonna suck this week. But watch. Make sure to watch it. Maybe I'll do one of those old school like let's just go through all the. No, there wasn't enough sacks to do that. All right, we'll be back on Thursday for a mailbag pod. We appreciate you guys, and we're gonna go 3-1. We're gonna go 3-1. So flush it out and let's win some games. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.